It's Mental Health Chat Monday, the new and improved version, honey. This is a series where we sit down with a brand new guest every single week and discuss their journey with mental illness and mental wellness, because here on Mental Health Chat Monday, our motto is turning mental illness into mental wellness. I am your host, DDare Bionic. Thank you so much for tuning in today. You know all about me. All of my links are down below. I'm at DDare Bionic on everything. It's called branding. Look it up. But that is not why we're here today. As you know, we are here to speak with, to chat with a friend that I literally just met today that is now a part of my life forever. Professor, entrepreneur, the baddest bitch on planet Earth. The one and only Dr. Amber Jones is here today. Hello.
Hello.
So you are, I have to be honest, you are my first guest who I haven't known for more than, a week?
Yeah. Cool.
Yeah, I'm excited because, most of these people that I've interviewed have, been friends or, people that I know a lot about their story and who they are and where they came from. And I'm like, cool. I get to actually interview somebody who is actually going to, penetrate my mind with things that I did not already know, which has happened.
Are you okay with penetration?
Yes.
Wonderful.
This is a versatile household. Okay. This is going to be
what I should have said instead of making a crass joke, I'm so happy to be here with you, and I feel so honored to be here with you.
Thank you. I'm so happy to have you here. And crash jokes are 100% okay. That's what we live by.
More are coming.
Yes. Wonderful. Yeah, I want this to feel as comfortable as this whole hour that we have spent getting to know each other.
Yes.
Sweet. So, introduce yourself to the people. Let them know who you are. Tell us a little bit of your backstory.
Okay, well, you did a really great job. So, I am a professor, currently a lecturer, and an entrepreneur. What in my backstory should I talk about?
Whatever you want to. Okay. You can go as deep or as far as you want to just for the introduction.
Cool. I'm a St. Louis native. Grew up in the county. Graduate of Kirkwood High School.
Okay.
Pause for everyone, coming up with their preconceived notions of Kirkwood High School. I love the city. I'm descendant of educators and social workers and people who use all of their time and energy to help other people, and that's always been a part of my identity.
Mm-hmm. I love it. Okay, so I like to start these episodes the exact same way, every single one. Mental health check. How are you? How has 2023 been for you? Where are you today on this 13th day of February?
Yes. Ooh, I am somewhere in the ether, I would say.
Okay.
I'm in the middle of a really trying time in my life. I am not working full time, and I'm the kind of bitch, I had my first job at 14. I will work for a paycheck. But then also I'm in a time in my life where I'm seeing how those patterns haven't always served me. And so I'm, not making as much as I want, but also trying to avoid the panic of that, trying to heal myself. And also what has been so important is trusting my community. There's been so many times, I was just kind of thrown into this panic, just describing my life right now, where my community has responded with I've got you.
Yeah.
And it's one thing to say it and one thing to know that they have your back. It's another thing to desperately need it, not have any other choice or option.
Yeah.
But to take someone's help and to trust that. And that's really difficult. But it's maybe some of the most important lessons I've learned in my life is that I am deeply loved, and that people don't see it as a burden to help me and to pour into me when I am struggling. And that's a beautiful thing to be able to even experience. And I wouldn't experience it if I wasn't in this shitty ass, horrible ass place in my life. Materially
Yes.
shitty. Community rich.
And I think that's something we don't realize enough, is that, especially as Black people, we're kind of wired by generations before us to be strong and to not need anybody else. And I feel very deeply in my soul that that's why a lot of us have that issue of being a burden. We don't want to be a burden. We don't want to put somebody else. Oh, I don't want to put you out. I can't tell you how many times I've said that in my life. I didn't want to put anybody out.
Yeah. Are you sure?
6 times. I'm in the car with you. Are you sure you can take me? Like, are you sure it's okay? Yeah, Black people.
There is an art to accepting love. And so many things around us are constantly telling us that we don't deserve that. We didn't work hard enough. We didn't do enough. We weren't smart enough. We weren't good enough. And just ignoring all of that and just knowing that, like, the people that you love you, and they don't have a problem loving you.
Yeah.
It's not
scary,
a burden.
Though. It's
not taken away from them. Yeah, it's scary having to rely on that. Because, let's be honest, sometimes the experiences, you're relying on it and those people aren't there. And my heart goes out to anybody who's ever had to experience that. But luckily, in this space that I'm in, where I'm just not good. Like, the real answer to the question is, like, I'm not good. There are lots of things that are wrong, that are out of place, but I have to acknowledge that I'm here breathing, able to smile, because people really truly have my back. And it's a trip.
It's difficult. It's very difficult. And I want to talk a little bit, before we get into the deep stuff, which this, I guess, is kind of deep. I want to talk a little bit about, I introduced you as Dr. Amber Jones. Talk to me about going through the process of getting a doctorate. Talk to me about your history with education. You're a descendant of educators. Just the way you carry yourself is as an educator. If I didn't know, if my partner didn't tell me who you were and what you were about before you walked into this room, I would be like, are you a teacher? You have that, and I almost said mothering, but it's not mothering. It's a very, I don't know what the word is even to describe it.
There's nurturing.
There's nurturing,
it's a
and
specific nurturing.
It's very specific, and I've experienced it so many times with some of the teachers that I still keep contact with, and some of the people in my life who have educated me who weren't necessarily teachers. It's so apparent in you, and it's so beautiful. So talk to me about your history with education.
Well, like, it's funny that you say that, because that wasn't the plan. You know, like, growing up, like, some of, like, you know, those real formative moments were, like, times I was arguing with someone and I was fighting with my mom or my brother. They from a young age, knew that, like, Amber is on Amber's side. And so sometimes Amber's side will align with Mom. Sometimes Amber's side will align with Ben. But she's always on Amber's side.
But at the end of the day.
Yeah, it's Amber's side. And so, like, my mom would make these jokes like, oh, you want to argue so much, why don't you grow up and be a lawyer? And I was like, that's an idea. Because on television, lawyers are the people who are really smart and they see what's going on and they say the quip when it's time to say the quip. Glamorous. And I was just like, and they're dressed nice. And, like, I very much wanted to be Claire Huxtable.
Yes.
Lawyer. She could sing. Had a glorious hair. I could never sing a note. I'm so jealous of people who can sing.
Listen, it took me a long time to get to where I am with my voice and to be comfortable with where my voice is.
I still have fantasies of like gravelly voice lounge singer. Like that might be one of my lives. But yeah, so like I was like, lawyers, they're smart. That's what I want to be. I want to be the smart one in the room. And I grew up in Kirkwood schools. Like I went through Kirkwood schools all of my years. So did my older brother. Same with my older cousin. And, you know, like I talked with you before, like I'm a sweetheart. It is apparent, like I couldn't wipe the sweetheart off of me if you even tried. Yeah, you. Like, do you want to hear a little bit about Little Sweetheart Amber?
Yes, absolutely.
And just like my refusal to ever change. So like me and my brother rode the bus to school, and like my brother, he's a few years older. And so, like, there was, like, one day I got on the bus and all, like, the seats were taken. I went to my brother and I was like, Ben, can I sit with you? And he was like, no. And I was like, fine, I know. He plays hard. He's softer than me. Anyway, I hope he never sees this anyway. And so, like, I'm searching. The only open seat is all the way in the back, and you know that's where the bad kids sit. But that's Little Sweetheart Amber was like, oh well, like it's the seat that's open, so the sweetheart's sitting there today. So I'm sitting there, and then like this girl comes on, and like I could feel like the energy shift, like something's gonna happen. So this girl comes, and she's like, you're in my seat. And I just looked at her and I was like, well, I was like, there's enough room for both of us. Like, I'm literally going into mode like, okay, Amber, now it's time to make a friend.
And friend.
Yeah, I was like, this is what's happening now. And like this girl's like talking to me like I don't speak English, or so she was like, you're in my seat. And I'm like, I said, like, there's room for both of us. Like, I'll scoot over, but there's room for both of us. And then, like, almost in slow motion, like, I see her, like, look over her shoulder and then look back and just, like, pop me in the eye real quick.
Oh, my God.
Like, I don't even know if I felt it, but I just started screaming at the top of my lungs. My brother knows, like, oh, God, that's my sister. I'm going to get in so much trouble. I should have just let her sit with me.
Oh my God.
Oh my gosh. And so, like, and of course, like, Little Sweetheart, light skin Amber, I have like a little, like, black eye. It was ridiculous. So, like, I had to, like, go to my mom and tell her. Sorry. It turns out the girl who hit me, her older brother had an issue with my older brother, and like years ago I had like heard that there was some kid who threw a brick at Ben, and that ended up being like her older brother. And so my mom was like, oh my God, like I have a problem with these people again. And my mom, who is, you know, she raised the sweetheart, and so she is a very like straightforward, but like in the history of her life, she was the punk. Like, she had an older sister and older cousins who fought her fights for her. And she is the one who would, like, cry if someone looked at her the wrong way.
Yeah.
But she's in this situation, and she finds out that, like, their mother, like, lived in, like, the next town, like, not town over, the street over. So they were like neighbors essentially, and so like called them up to try to like talk with them about it. And like and so my mom is like walking up the street to like meet these kids' parents, and she sees this whole group of people walking towards her, and my mother is like, oh my God, they're gonna beat me up. No, my mom was just like, our whole family's just gonna get beat up by this. She was like, oh my God. But she was like, I gotta show my babies this is how you deal with conflict. Oh God. And so she's walking up the street to these people, and she's so nervous, and then she doesn't even get all the way up there, and then they recognize her. So at the time, my mom was working at this place called Metroplex, and they're basically like just like a social work agency. And so they did like the helping people pay their bills and stuff like that. And one of the people in the gang recognized my mom, like, that's the Metroplex lady. She helps us with stuff. And like, that was the day my mother survived. It was not.
Come on, Metroplex lady.
Yes. And so,
you want your life turned off?
So like this experience to little sweetheart Amber is like, cool. You never have to fight as long as you're a good person. You're okay. Yeah, exactly. Little sweetheart brain. And so anyway, so this has always been like just a legendary story to me. Just as how hilarious it would have been if my mom got beat up.
I got the visual of like a whole family of people like walking up and your mom just being like,
what do I do?
What do I do? Run.
Run! She was like, she raised the little sweetheart kids and their kids bullied. Like, she was like, I can't do this.
This ain't me.
Yes. Oh my gosh. And so I use that story because it was definitely like a core memory for me. Like, we all escaped annihilation. And I don't know, like, there's something imprinted on me that, like, I don't have to change for these people. Yeah. And I get, like, I look back, I was like, yeah, that was a goofy little kid, but also, like, I was a little kid.
Yeah.
I was like, I kind of stand by it, like,
That philosophy is pretty good to go by.
Yeah, I don't see a problem with it. Like, yeah, I, got my black eye and stuff, but all in all, I was like, that's a win for us. And anyway, so like my mom raised me to be a punk. I've had lots of people I say that to are like, ooh, don't say that about yourself. What? And I'm just like, it's true. It's just part of who I am. And so, like, that's a big part of it. Also, like, along with that sweetheartness is just, like, I was naturally smart. And I liked being smart. I liked getting attention from adults for being smart. In days before I was able to understand, like, there was a difference between how they viewed me as a little light-skinned girl versus like the other black girls that I went to school with, but I just that clicked for me. I knew I was good at school. I liked learning. I was always a big nerd, but even then I didn't really see education as my thing. The other big influence in my life was my aunt, Patricia Pendleton. She was a kindergarten teacher in SLPS for over 30 years. And so, like, another layer of me when I talk about, like, being kind and like what you were saying before, like the teacherness of me, I 100% picked that up from Auntie Pat, because she walked, talked, breathed being a teacher. Like, there was, like, I look back at times just like talking with her and I was like, oh, all of that was pedagogy. Like, down to the way she spoke to children. I'll always remember, like, her voice had a different softness to it when she was speaking to a child, and just the way that communicates so many things to a child. And just so, like, those layers of, like, that's on purpose. Yeah. And all of it was to serve children, and that's just how I kind of absorbed what it meant to be a grown woman. Like, before I had made the connection to this is how teachers live, and this is how a master teacher lives. So I still didn't know I was going to go into education, but I always had questions in my head about education. And often specifically about my older brother's experience in schools, where, you know, I was a sweetheart. Like, he wasn't necessarily different from me. Like, you know, a black male can't really be a sweetheart in all the same ways. But, like, he was not a troublemaker. Like, he was polite. He was all the same things that, like, kind of got me special treatment. But he was a boy. And so it was different. And so much of the drama of our lives were, like, you know, how to encourage Ben. Like, how do we counteract this world that's, like, constantly killing him? Like, granted, we're being killed too, but there was more of an emphasis on just how this was affecting my brother to, you know, good and bad ends. And so that was always on my mind. And I went to college. I was, you know, just being good in school still, and trying to feel out. Like, I was pre-law, but I didn't really like any of my pre-law classes. And so I was, like, just trying to figure out how I felt about that. I was like, and then I was introduced to this program called the McNair Scholars Program.
Okay, I've never heard of it.
It's a trio program. Have you heard of those at all? Well,
I went to one semester of art school.
Well, the McNair Scholars Program is it's named for Ronald E. McNair, who is really amazing. He's a black what's the word I'm looking for? Astronaut. Who died in the Challenger, and, like, his life is really, really amazing. And so it's a huge tragedy that his life was lost. But this organization was named in his honor, and the idea of it is just take underrepresented people and teach them how to do research. Show them that there is a life in the future in doing research in higher education. And, you know, I applied for it because it was a special thing, and that's what I did. I applied to special things, and I often got them, so I applied to this. And, like, to not make the story longer, like, at one point I even, like, missed my interview, and I had to beg them to let me interview. And then I was like in rare form when I was convincing them to let me into this program, even though I didn't know really what for yet. But they let me in by the grace of God. And that first summer, they were like, okay, we're going to teach you how to do research. Just choose a question, any question, and you're going to research it and do a project on it and present it at the end of the summer.
That sounds really fun. I love research.
Yeah, it's so great. And so, like, did it. I was, like, thinking, and then I went back to all those questions I had about my brother's experience in school. Why was it so different? If he wasn't, you know, a gangbanger, if he wasn't a troublemaker, why couldn't they just fucking encourage him? Why did they have to kill his spirit, essentially, and we had to deal with the aftermath of that? And just, like, did that first research project, read a bunch of books that I never would have read unless I was trying to answer those questions. And, like, what you just said afterwards, like, we had presented and people asked you questions about your research and you answer and stuff. And I was sitting with one of my professors and I was like, this was fun. I had a lot of fun doing this. And she, like, looked at me like I was crazy, and she was like, you know, this is a job, right? This is like what I do. This is what you're learning to do.
To have fun.
And I was like, what?
That's something.
I always wanted to be the smart one in the room. Like, you're saying I can go to grad school and be called doctor. That's smart. Okay. I was like, because I already wasn't really feeling law. And so then I was hooked. I lucked out, and, like, the next summer, so I was applying to do that again, so I wanted some more research. I was like, literally, like, put it in my veins. And the next summer, I was accepted into a program at University of Illinois, Urbana-Champaign.
Okay.
Because I had done that former summer's research, and turned that in, they assigned me to the educational policy studies, and it's led by a scholar called James Anderson. This black man, and that summer was the first time, in educational policy studies, I was in a space where most of the professors were black people, people of color. Most of the grad students were all black. And I was sitting in this space, and I was like, this is amazing. This is we get to talk about black people all day. And it was more than because of course I wanted to go to Howard. I wanted to go to the HBCU, but then I didn't get as much money from them, and I had to go to a place there I could afford. And I went to Truman. I really, really loved Truman. Nothing wrong with Truman.
Yeah.
But yeah, this was the first black academic space I had ever been in, and it was so different from anything. And I'm in a black sorority, I was in black communities in my college. It was not like that. And so I was sitting there and I was like, okay, well, this is where I'm going for grad school. And I asked them, I was like, is there anywhere else in the country like this? I was like, I only want to apply to places like this. And they were like, well, Emory. And I was like, okay, I guess I'll look them up. And I did. When I applied to Emory, they liked me just a bit more. And what was really, really, I don't want to use the word luck, blessed for me, the James Anderson that I worked with at Illinois, he happens to be one of the top people in the history of black education. And that's where I first kind of got a little hooked on it, when I went to Emory and met Vanessa Siddle Walker. She's the other well, there are several big names in the history of black education, but she's one of the other big names, and just clicked with her instantly. They liked what I talked about, and I talked about my journey, asking questions about my brother's experience, and I talked about loving bell hooks and stuff like that. And they saw something in me, and they were like, okay, we're taking her. And I think there was I think, all right, in my mind, Vanessa Siddle Walker calls up James Anderson, and you're like, well, you can't have her, we're taking her.
That's exactly what happened.
Yeah,
that's exactly what happened.
Exactly what
no
happened.
Other explanation for that.
Oh my gosh, please no one reach out to them. But yes.
Definitely not sending an email right
now. No, she loves me. But yeah, and that changed my life forever. And I feel like I stumbled into it. I know that I was really blessed to find it, but it was there that I really sunk my teeth into the history of black education and found within it just this beautiful story that I was searching for. It connected with so much because along with all my questions about my brother, there were also all these questions about why even someone like me who was a fucking sweetheart, why was my experience so much different from my white counterparts? Why were there so many instances of me fighting for shit that they were just given? Why was that okay?
Yeah.
In a school that boasts they send people to the Ivies, they love all of that stuff, but I had to fight really, really hard. And as I continued with learning about the history of black education, I also learned so much more about my own education that even within our really amazing high-ranked school, they were essentially providing a different education for students at the top versus like the rest of them. And like the students at the top, like in all of my classes, I was like one of one black student, but it didn't occur to me until later that there were too many black kids at my school in my grade for there to be one of us in every single class. That there were plenty of classrooms that were all black. And what I found is that those classrooms had a very different experience than mine. And that's something that I've had to just like grapple with. But like that is why I say like when I found the study of the history of black education that could give me answers to that I experienced and saw but didn't have words for, that is like I'm hooked, you know, like there was nothing else for me but to do this. And on top of that, I just knew all of these answers that meant so much to me. I knew like they would have meant a lot to me at 16. They would have meant a lot to me at 12. And I wanted to be that person to help bring that to younger versions of me, because I'm like, what else can you do with it? Because I didn't get it until 25. What can you do with it at 16? And for the most part, even though I've had so many ups and downs with my career that has really just started, I've been able to stick true to that, and that's a gift.
Yes. First of all, I didn't really even realize that there was not that I didn't realize, but as someone who only did a semester of art school, education was something, you know, I went to McClure South Berkeley. I always joke that I went to a poor black school, but it's quite true. I went to a poor black school. And all of the money went into football and sports and everything. And I remember being in plays, and our director having to like make a lot of our costumes like with our own money out of our own pocket, or being in mock trial, an academic program. And I loved mock trial, but I wasn't in mock trial because of law. I was in mock trial because I got to act. That's what it was.
Plenty of actors, and then people like me that were dramatic and wanted to go into law.
I didn't give a damn about law, but I was there.
I'm a full 5 years older than you, so we definitely didn't cross, but mock trial was fucking real, and it was awesome.
And you know, just to kind of continue the conversation about being black in academic spaces. So our team was obviously predominantly black. We had one white person on our team, with my very good friend Tammy, who I'm still friends with to this day, the best lawyer on our team. Like, that bitch was killer. She came into the room, I almost said the workroom. She would walk into the room and like, you know that she is the one in charge. So like our junior and senior year, I think we started mock trial our sophomore year. And that year we were just witnesses, and she killed it. And then the next year we both got promoted to lawyers, and she was like second lawyer, and I was like stand-in lawyer or whatever, but I still wanted to be a witness because I wanted to act. And then our senior year, she was captain, and I was like, I guess, what do you call the person under the captain? Is it like assistant captain? I don't know. But she was captain, and I was second in command. And we were both the main lawyers. Nice. And we had this one case. And I mean, we drilled it. We were there. And I forget who, exactly the scenario, but the guy on the other team, we were against Clayton Boys School. The guy on the other team objected to his own question. No, they sucked. When we went up against them, they sucked. We ain't going against
any team where their parents were lawyers. We're like, this is fucking rigged.
They sucked. They were so bad. We mopped the floor with them. Mopped the floor with them. Did not win. They won all 3 ballots. And this man objected to his own question. And it was like, I remember our coach coming in, and you know, he was disappointed, and we were all excited because we even the people in the audience were like,
destroyed them.
It was clear. And he came in and he was shaking his head, and we were furious. I wrote an article about it in our school newspaper because of course I was on their newspaper too. But you know, it I don't even know where I was going with that story. Where was I going with that?
Being black in academic spaces.
Yes. So I didn't even really realize that there was so much depth to being black in academia, because I grew up black in academia. And my experience with it, of course, is very different from yours, because it's high school. These are the only people I know.
Yeah.
I'm not going to, I would meet other people and go from other high schools and make friends and whatever. But once I got to college, my college was predominantly Korean. It was a lot of white people, a lot of Korean people, and hey! This funny story. One time, my mom called me. Most of my friends were white that I was with up there, except for my best friend. She went to school 6 blocks away from me. And we were having like a little get together or whatever, and I answered the phone. I guess I answered the phone a little too white for my mom, and she told me to nigga up, and it was the funniest thing. It, to this day, sends me, it makes me laugh so hard. And so I want to talk a little bit about, rounding that whole anecdote around, I want to talk a little bit about how being black in academia has affected your mental health, or how striving that hard for something that we don't talk about as black people, how that affects you mentally.
So many things. Like the first thing I thought of when you were talking about that, like I mentioned my auntie Pat. She was a teacher and she had a master's degree, and she always wanted the PhD, but like life got in the way. And I remember like when I called her, like the moment after I like defended my dissertation and stuff, and like told her, like she broke down crying. And I'll never forget that. And she was like, I'm so, I'm happy for you. It's just like, like it's something I wanted so badly, and it was like so impossible. And it was probably a trip to see, like little Amber, and like I went straight through, like after college I started grad school immediately. Yeah. So let's talk about the impact on my mental health there.
Yeah.
Like I went straight through. I had my PhD at 28. And like that was intense. Thank you.
Oh my god.
I was like, if I could flex a little bit, I did get 3 degrees in 10 years.
I mean, you flex hard.
Between 18 and 28.
Flex hard. Yes. All I got between 18 and 28 was depression.
I got plenty of that.
I already had it. I guess technically I was bringing it with me.
Like there are so many ways that I was lucky, because like I said, like I landed at Emory, and our little program was so beautiful. Like not only like all black faculty, but like black faculty at the tops of their fields. Like these are the people, but then also people that like take mentorship really seriously, took the culture of our program really seriously, where like, our cohorts were all like really, really close. Our motto is like, we're stronger together than we are apart.
Yes.
And so like when I talk about like being community rich now, a lot of those people are people I went to grad school with, that like, know my struggle, know my journey, and aren't just there to like, give me a pep talk, but are there to be like, okay, are your bills paid? Do you have this? And so like the ethic of the place was so beautiful. It was exactly what I needed to become the person that I would become. And even that being said, like my mental health was atrocious throughout the whole thing. Like there were so many times, like I look back and I'm like, bitch, was I just trying to kill myself? Like, cause like there were so many times where like, one, I was just like undiagnosed for everything. And also in like the first situation where I would even like have any kind of time to devote to mental health, because like, I was always like, go, 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 go. You can't really pause for anything because then you don't get what you want. Like I said, I started working at 14 because I wanted money to do shit, and so that was my first time, like, I'm going to find a therapist, and really wanted to find a black woman. I couldn't. And so, like, I started seeing, like, this Jewish woman, and I thought, like, experience with oppression, maybe it'll translate. And she wasn't a bad lady. She was really nice. But, like, I started treating therapy kind of like school, where I was, like, showing up, and I'm like, this is what I'm going through. This is what I did about it.
I did good. That was great.
It's like, can you sign off on this form for me? Even though, like, bitch, you decided to do this. And it didn't quite click for me yet what that time was supposed to be for. But, like, I'm happy I went through that, because now I know, like, how not to be in therapy. Because I wasn't doing anything for myself. I was just showing up. Yeah, and to her credit, like, that's what she said to me. She was like, I feel like you want, like, a gold star or something, or, like, I feel like you're just giving me a report, and, like, and I couldn't see past that level to the level I really needed to be on, even though I was there trying to deal with the stuff that I was dealing with. I couldn't figure out how to show up in the right way, and, like, I kind of attributed to it, like, I didn't choose the right person. Like, she was nice. Obviously, she was a professional. She didn't make me feel, like, alone or anything, but I just wasn't going to open up to her the way I would open up to a black woman. But one good thing that did come out of that experience is, one, she didn't, like, introduce me to just the concept of attachment styles. And, like, that opened a lot of just, like, doors for me as far as understanding myself. And also, I started medication in that time, and medication just, like, took to my brain really, really well. I know other people don't have a great experience, but, like, I almost remember, like, it almost felt like a light switch, and I was like, things that used to bother me don't as much. I have more time in my day, I'll take it, and, like, and I was good on that, and, like, it was Wellbutrin, which, like, my issues are more with, like, anxiety, and Wellbutrin's not supposed to be good for that, but, like, it worked for me because brains are weird.
Yes, they are.
And so, I still, even with that, I think it was mild enough that I didn't take it super seriously, that if I, like, forgot and didn't get it refilled, it wasn't that big of a deal, and I would eventually come around and refill it again. So, like, I wasn't building good gains, really, and I didn't really realize how to do that. And eventually I just started, like, forgetting about my therapy sessions, and then so I still had to pay, so eventually I just stopped. And I was like, okay, but I kept the medication, that helps me, so I'll just do that. Even then, like, my mental health was not great, even though I had great supports. I didn't know how to take advantage of them. And I also, like, there's a part of me that, like, when I'm stressed, there's a part of me that wants to just, like, dial it up even more. What? Like, as if I'm trying to test my limits. And so, like, like, there'll be times where if I'm already burning the candle at both ends, bitch, why don't we try burning it from the middle? You find a third end.
Yes. It's like,
what happens? Let's see. As if the logical conclusion is you die. You run out of candle.
You run out of candle. There's no candle left.
There's no candle.
I relate so deeply to that. We talked a little bit earlier, like, before we were recording and everything, about how I had done 13 shows in 13 months, and how I was like, you are the baddest bitch. You are actor, director, fucking every single thing you could possibly be in the theater. You have done it, honey, and you are serving it to the children.
Busy is better.
And the second I stopped, I was like, ooh, what's that pain?
Yeah.
Ah. Yeah. Everything hurts, but not physically, mentally.
My body.
But also physically, somehow I am also physically in pain. It's so scary, and I want, especially as creatives, us people who sit outside the boundaries, we have this tendency to feel like we're not worth anything if we're not working anything. You're not worth anything if you're not working anything. Woo! That was a message.
T-shirt, yeah.
Listen, that was a word. But you are worth so much.
Yeah.
All the time. Because that creativity never goes away. That energy, that light, that presence that you have never goes away. Even when you're not actively using it. Yeah. And I, now that I'm starting this journey of having a podcast and trying to grow that way and be independent and make money myself, I also have to still be like, don't push yourself too much. Yeah. Because just like you, I'm like, go. You got to do it. You have to do it now. You have to do it now. Like, sometimes I just have to give myself a day with my Nintendo Switch and my Pokemon games. And I'm just like, you know what? Turn it off.
Decompress, yeah.
Turn it off. So, on the topic of that, what are some of your techniques or coping skills or ways that you decompress when you feel like you've put too much too much on yourself?
Well, for me, I have to learn things the hard way sometimes.
Same.
I just want to learn it. And for me, I got to a point, this is after grad school and I have my first job and I'm teaching high school, where I'm pushing, and my body is finally like, nah, bitch, we're breaking now. And so my brain starts doing some scary things where I was dreaming that I was drowning. Of course, Amber, get the symbolism.
Yeah.
I was dreaming that I was drowning, and when I woke up, I knew I was awake, my eyes were open, but my brain still felt like I was drowning and I couldn't breathe.
Oh my God.
And I'm sitting here pounding my chest to fully wake myself up so I can breathe again. And it only takes a few seconds, but then I'm just like, and I was like, that was bad. That was bad. What just happened here, brain? And my brain was just like, you aren't getting the message.
I gave it to you in real life and in dreams.
Bitch, I will kill you.
If 2 + 2 is 4. If 5 + 5 is 10.
I was like, we can't keep pushing like this. And so just having the real visceral memory of that is what keeps me from going there again. And so now that and a lot of that happening right before the pandemic and that beautiful quarantine time that we had.
I am so very glad that I'm not the only one that felt good with quarantine. After the first month. I miss
it so much.
After the first month, I wanted to learn how to surgically remove my skin. I was like, I'm going crazy. But something about month 2, I was like,
wait a minute.
Freedom.
Yeah.
I wrote the rest of my album.
Go.
Yeah.
It was such a beautiful time that again was so important to me because I had been going at that breakneck speed and I had broken a little bit. And so it was just really welcome having that space. Oh God, and I'm sad because I'm like, we'll never have anything like that again. Even though we need it, I was like, we'll never have it again. I can't I hope I have children so I can explain to them how beautiful and weird that time was.
It was really
imagine just letting go of everything.
Work. Responsibilities.
Stores not open.
Now see, we just talked about this. I love going to the grocery store now.
I know.
I love to peruse. I love a peruse.
Yeah, that was hard at that time. I did not have trouble letting that go.
I was like, I was living in my grandparents' basement at the time, so it was that piled on top of it. I was like, damn, if I had my own space I would be thriving right now. And I just kind of had to make the best of that situation.
I was like, I had my own space. It was so nice.
You know?
I immediately realized how much time and preparation I put into just being around other people in some way that I thought like made me acceptable, and like being able to let that go literally changed my life. And so there's a part of me that is still in quarantine. That's what I will never leave. Honestly, quarantine.
Same. It
doesn't want anything of this future.
I just really want to. I need to be at a place where I can go away for 3 months into a cabin in the woods and just write. And just create and make. And I know there's a lot of creatives that are similar in that way, where they need that alone time, but they also need the life experience. Yeah. And I feel like, okay, so I put out my last album, Statuesque Hot Mess, stream it everywhere. I put it out. It's been, oh my God, it'll be a year on March 31st. So we'll have been out for a year. And I feel like in the year that album has been out, I have experienced so much more life. And I'm ready to start writing the next album. And like, honestly, right now would be a good time to just like shut it down for like 3 months. I write really fast. I write so fast. I would be able to bang out a whole album. Or even just a small EP. The rest of the play that I'm working on. I just
need the whole world to shut down again.
I need everybody
because
to shut up.
Because it wasn't just that like you were standing still. It was everybody was standing still.
And I don't know if you ever feel bad about it, but not necessarily bad. But so many people were so negatively affected by the pandemic.
I feel bad in that like I was able to have that space because I wasn't furloughed because of all of these different things. Yes.
Well, I was furloughed. I was furloughed, but I was collecting that check from the government, and it was a nice little check. It got us this apartment. Like, it's... Yeah, but
I miss the government checks.
I miss those government checks, too, man. Uncle John, one more round. Just for all time's sake. Since you can't cancel student loan debt, give me one more round of
talk about that betrayal.
I was so mad. Anyway, we won't go into that because that will be a downward spiral. This is about
mental wellness.
So, damn, I had a question in my head and I totally duped myself by talking about Uncle Joe and the stimulus checks. I was going to say, I wrote this song. It didn't make it onto the album, but I think I'm going to put it on the next one after I tweak it and make it better because it's not great right now. But it was called Pandemonium, and it was about being like, I always call, still to this day, the pandemic, I call it the pandemonium because it was, although there weren't people running around the streets, everybody was running around the streets like crazy. Like, the world was on fire. And I wrote this song about that and about how healing that time was for me. Yeah. Y'all will hear it one day. It's actually not bad, but it's not good either, which is why it never got recorded. So, diving a little bit into my little script here, because I have a question that I wanted to ask you. You talked a little bit about medication, and I have never been medicated. I was prescribed medicine. I never took it because of my own internalized fear, and I also felt like I didn't need it. I was just kind of asking for a diagnosis. Talk to me a little bit. I know you said it kind of instantly helped you, but talk to me about how that moment was for you when you realized that, like, oh wow, life can be okay.
Yes, and I love talking about my experience with medication, especially one because everyone's brain is different. And I feel like before my experience with medication, I only really heard one kind of story, but I'll get into it. So I started off my first medication I ever did was Wellbutrin. It was a really low dose. I've since learned that Wellbutrin is one of the mildest ones. And really antidepressants in so many ways are very, very mild, most of them. And so like it kind of like made sense that like it really, the difference that I could tell was I would experience things that I knew at a previous time would upset me, and I would be distracted and have that kind of feeling on me all day probably. And I noticed almost like right away, like the same kind of thing would happen, and I was like, actually this, I don't feel that. Like it was almost like a blanket that would be like put like a weighted thing on my shoulder that I had to carry around all day, and then like it would happen again, and just that weight isn't on me. I didn't have to carry it all day, and like that was cool with me. I was just like, nice, like it's mild. I really didn't feel any other like side effects or anything from it. I was good. And like that's the only one I used for a really long time. But like all things change. Fast forward a few years when I'm going through complex grief disorder after I lost my dad, and I'm working like the hardest job I've ever had, but hopefully will ever have, which is just a high school teacher. And so, and like at that point where I'm pushing, and because of just like the very specific things that grief was doing to anxiety that I thought like I knew, you know, like I kind of lived with this my whole life. I've have this experience dealing with it. Grief changed it. It made it a much meaner animal. And all of a sudden it's like me and this vicious thing. And so when I finally did like make enough space to talk with my psychiatrist about it, that's when I was put on different kinds of medications. Like I kept the Wellbutrin. One he put me on was sertraline, and I think it's a generic of Prozac.
Okay.
And this one, it was described to me, it was like literally for like, because I was having these horrible panic attacks that were just debilitating. And like, and that one was for just like the part of my brain that like goes to have panic attacks, and it's one that you take every day, and just eventually you'll feel the panic attacks taper off. My experience with it is like that was the first time I kind of felt what I had heard antidepressants were like, where like on my original dosage of it, like I did feel flat, and that was weird for me. I did have like sexual kind of like side effects where it's like literally you can't excite your body at all. Like to get rid of the panic attacks, you can't even reach an excited state. And so it was weird where like I couldn't really like cry, and I felt really like flat, and I was just like, I, like many people, I hated that feeling. I didn't like it, but I was in such pain at that point. I was just like, but this is what I gotta do, because I'm literally not able to live my life with how my mental state was going. But I talked with my psychiatrist about it, told him about like the side effects and stuff and feeling flat, and he was just like, you can take half of it. And once I switched to half, that stopped. Like, and so like, or I would say like there were two tapering off moments. Like it got better after like that 2, 3, 4 week getting used to it period. And it wasn't until after I had gotten used to it that I talked to my psychiatrist, and then my psychiatrist says you can take half. And when I took half, then it absolutely went away. I was like, okay. I was really afraid that I had to choose one or the other. And I was like, you know, choosing that because it was what was I needed for my mental health. But like, let's be honest, you wouldn't want to live that way for a long time, and it would be much more likely I would just stop taking that medication rather than, you know, deal with the side effects of it. And so like that was weird. So that was one extra medication I was put on. The other, and one that I recommend to anybody, is I was put on a sleep medication. This one was trazodone.
Okay, I've heard of it.
Yeah, and like literally, it's the way trazodone works is like you take it right before bed, and it just works to send that signal to your brain that it is time to go to sleep. So like before I'm put on trazodone, like even though I was already going through a horrible time, I was talking to my psychiatrist, and he had like asked me this question before. He was like, "How are you sleeping?" And I was like, "Oh, I sleep fine, you know." And he was like, "How are you sleeping? How many hours? How restful is it?" And I was like, "Oh, like, you know, like 5 or 6, sometimes 4." And he's like, yeah, and so gave me the trazodone, and literally I didn't realize that I would go to bed and my brain would be turning, and I would sit there just thinking for the longest time and wishing I could fall asleep. With the trazodone, I could just fall asleep and like have actual deep restful sleep, not that like kind of like light barely asleep. Yeah,
that's how I sleep.
And so like that, out of all the medications, I think had the deepest effect on me, that I didn't even know what good sleep could do for my wellness. Like I wasn't giving myself any time. And so with like the grief on top of it, I found that I really needed like 9-10 hours of sleep a night just to function in my job regularly. But once I got that trazodone and I could have good restful sleep for 9-10 hours a night, like that saved my life. And then like the third medication I got at this time, I think it's called escitalopram. These are all like generic, and this one I call that one my chill pill, where literally if I was having a big horrible panic attack, then you take that pill and it's like a as needed thing. And that one worked for me really, really well. Like I found like it didn't even take a whole lot to kind of like set off like a pre-panic attack where I could feel like my heart beating out of my chest, and I would take my chill pill and then it would stop. And like that was awesome for me. And so I've kind of gone back and forth, like as I stabilized a little bit more, like again I've kind of fallen into my bad habits of like not keeping up with my medications after they've done so much for me. But like the one I definitely want to like kind of keep maybe forever is the trazodone because like it makes such a huge difference.
I know a lot of us don't really realize how important sleep is. And you can ask Ronnie, I sleep terribly. Like I feel like I've always been kind of a bad sleeper. I always have, and I don't have nightmares. And that's another thing that I'm like not necessarily worried about, and this will get a little bit into the more spiritual witchy side of myself, but like I want to remember my dreams because I know that there is a message, not necessarily in every dream, but I do like to remember my dreams for my own sake. And I don't worry necessarily that I won't have dreams or that I will forget them more so when I wake up. But I don't know, I guess I just don't want my dreams to be affected. I've always found solace in dreams, even though I don't sleep very much. When I do get like a good sleep and I have a really like vivid dream, which is, the dreams are vivid all the time, but like sleeping and actually remembering the dream, it's like a weird therapy for me. Like I feel like I got something from it and I'm like, okay, there's a message there, let me write this down, let me figure out what is there. But that's just you know,
like I hope that you give yourself the time to get the real rest you deserve, because it really is a game changer. Especially because like you connected with me on like that tendency we have to try to work ourselves to death. That is not good.
No.
And your body, you know, it's kept you alive through these really, really horrible years where lots of things have been trying to kill you.
Including my body.
Yeah. And so I hope that, whether it's medication or whatever, that you find a real good rest. It's a game changer.
I hope so too. And like the few times that I have had what I feel to be really, really like good rest and like waking up the next day feeling rejuvenated. Like Sunday, a couple of Sundays ago, I was just so exhausted. Like work has been crazy busy. I've been working a lot, and like I came home Sunday and I was like, I need to take a nap. And I slept for like an hour and a half, woke up and I felt like a brand new person. So like I have moments. If I sleep too much, like if I get 8 hours of sleep, I wake up the next day feeling like, whoa. But if I get like 4 or 5 hours of sleep, I wake up the next day still a little wood, but like more alert and ready to take on the day. And I just feel like that's not good.
I was trying not to judge you too harsh.
No, I feel like it's not good.
Yeah, I was like, when you say like, oh, when I get 8 hours, I wake up grumpy. I was like, you should try 10. I was like, for me, that says more sleep, not less.
The only time I've ever slept 10 hours is when I have chronic migraine. So when I have a really bad migraine and out and I wake up still feeling like
but yeah, like whatever works best for you, but I hope you find like that good rest.
I'm working on it.
Saved my life.
Here on Mental Health Chat Monday, we have a motto, like I said at the beginning, we're turning mental illness into mental wellness. What does mental wellness look like to you?
Mental wellness to me, I get a very specific image in my mind. Like I make a vision board every year. And like we do this stuff like clipping out of magazines and stuff. And like there was this part that I cut out of the magazine, like you've heard like the term like booked and busy. Like I had cut out booked, busy, and blessed. And I was just like, you know what? I don't really want to be busy. So I just put booked and blessed on it. And I was like, and like, universe, please witness. I don't want to be busy, but I do want to be blessed. Like, I was like, I want everything that I need. I want all the things covered. But I don't really need to be busy. I don't need to be stressed out here. And so I guess wellness for me is realizing that is wellness, and that, I don't know, of all the things that I'm worried about, because I'm like scared of so many things right now, that it's still okay to not work myself to death, and I don't need to do that in order to be okay. And so just like accepting that in all of the ways, trying to be patient and not, I guess, like just not punishing myself in like the ways that I used to punish myself when things weren't going well. And just realizing, I still have me. Just like what Erica said, all you got to do is hold on to yourself. And like I've done that, and to be proud of that is what wellness means to me.
That's beautiful. I love that response. I love that answer. I always say wellness to me is knowing that I'm going to live with this thing, that I have this depression, this person in my head that hates me, but keeping my foot on this neck.
Yeah.
Because you're going to be here, but you're not going to be here all the time. And then one final thing, leave us with a piece of advice for allies and how they can be in our corner and help us. Or support us, rather.
I think the best things that people around me have done is just like listen and let me process things the way I need to process. I think people have been really good at being there when I ask for help, but not being there if I'm not asking for help. And just kind of letting me go through my journey. And so my advice would be like, hold space for people, because everyone's working really, really hard to figure it out.
Yeah.
And it might, like, something might seem really simple to you, like, oh, of course you should do this, but they still need their space to get there.
Yeah.
And so there's a difference between, like, you know, giving advice and whatever, and just holding space for people. And that's often what they need to redirect however they want to redirect.
Yes, absolutely. You know, that's been kind of the overarching theme of this season so far, is listening and giving people space. And I love that no matter how different everybody's answers are to these questions, no matter how different everybody's story is and their backstory, I love that it all goes back to listening.
Yeah.
Because I think as a people, we need to listen to each other a lot more, and not just with our ears, but with our hearts.
Yes.
And that, I love it. Dr. Amber Jones, thank you so much for being here. It was absolutely lovely to meet you. Before we go, I want you, I already know what you need to plug, and I'm giving you the space right now to plug it. I need the world to know about this. What do you have to plug for us today? Because I've already seen it. I love it, and I think the world is going to love it.
I would just like to share with you this that I'm holding. It's called the Grind Journal. You can learn all about it at thegrindorg.com. But basically, this is a guided wellness journal for anyone who's interested in doing social justice work. It is created by, inspired by Black women, and there's so many little goodies in here that will help you think about your intersectional identities, think about your ancestors, hold space, and what that means for the work that you want to do in the world. We created this because we want to live in a world that is transformed by all of our good ideas and how we heal ourselves and others, and this is a tool to do that. So check out the Grind Organization. We are on Instagram. You can check me out. I am Treesap22 on Instagram and The Amberness on Twitter.
Yes, all of that will be linked down below. I got a chance to thumb through the Grind Journal, and let me tell you, it is transformative. I just holding it in my hands and being able to look through, it's gonna come in multiple
and it comes in 2 colors.
Listen, you know we love options here on Mental Health Chat Monday. Absolutely.
Did you see the 3 ribbons?
Oh, I didn't notice it was
there
3
are
ribbons.
3 ribbons.
Okay, so you will understand how innovative that technology is when you get your hands on a Grind Journal, because there's so much to do. There's so many beautiful messages and imagery, and everything about it is just perfect. I already told you this, but I just need to tell you again, it is going to change people's lives.
Pre-sales will be starting soon. Please check out our website. Sign up for our newsletters, and you will know when you can get your hands on a Grind Journal.
Yes, I am already like on the list to get mine.
Yes.
Period. Point blank. Period. Everything will be linked down below where you can find Amber and the Grind Journal and the website and everything. All of that will be linked down below. Please, 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 absolutely 100% visit that link. Support Black women. Support Black business. And this is going to be transformative. Absolutely 100%. Thank you so much for being here today.
Thank you.
I adore you already, and I've known you for 4 minutes.
I loved it. I loved our whole conversation. I want to continue.
Yes. Well, we'll just have to have you back.
The real deep shit.
Yes. We'll just have to have you back.
There's a lot of deep shit. Like, specifically, I would love to come back and talk about mental health and dating.
Okay. Well, you will see Dr. Amber Jones back season 2. Don't play with it. Yes, but let's book that. Thank you all so much for tuning in to Mental Health Chat Monday. Again, my name is DDare Bionic. I am at DDare Bionic on all social media. You already know. And I always forget my outro. I might even leave this in because I always forget my outro. Thank you all so much for tuning in. Again, my name is DDare Bionic. I will see you next week with a brand new guest here on Mental Health Chat Monday. You can find me in Mental Health Chat Monday on all social media. Stream, listen, watch, whatever you want to do. It doesn't matter. Just support Black people, Black business, and Black women. Support Black women all the time. They should be running this damn country. Okay, bye. Bye.